our much loved, beloved, and esteemed principal Dr.R. Ravichandran, with whose proviso we are course plotting these webinar and conferences. So on behalf of the PG Department of English, I welcome you, sir, for this wonderful program. Sir, welcome.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, Principal, sir, welcome. Thank you. Also, I express my heartfelt gratitude, my sincere gratitude for all your impetus and support. Thank you, sir, once again, and I welcome you for the second day program. So I am glad to welcome the day's resource person, Mr. Asish Martin Tom, Assistant Professor, Department of English, DB College, Kerala, who is an expert in Marxism and Marxist theory, has designed his discourse on Marxist literary theory and introduction. Welcome, Professor. Professor Martin Tom, welcome.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much, sir.
Okay. So, sir, I wish you all success.
Thank you.
Thank you. A few words about our resource person. I had a chance of being together with him for about 3 weeks in a refresher course at Paradidasan University, Trichy. Of course, such a gentleman he is, and always ready to extend arms to all Indians. We had a very nice constructive course and refreshing our knowledge of both language and literature and helping each other and moving towards growth. There, as scheduled, we are supposed to present a seminar, and it is his presentation gave me the idea of inviting him as resource person of today's webinar. So that was such a wonderful presentation, and he was an expert. His expertise talk was grasped by his spontaneous overflow of powerful ideas regarding Marxism. And his areas of interest include literary theory, cultural studies, and films. So I am extremely happy to have my friend and expert person like him amidst us for a resourceful session. I thank him for having consented for this webinar also. Also, I wish him all the best to have a wonderful platform with us. I believe that this session will enrich us with the knowledge of the evaluation of Marxist literary theory. Marxism is a method of socio-economic analysis that uses a materialist interpretation of historical development, better known as historical materialism, to understand class relations and social conflicts, as well as a dialectical perspective to view social transformation. Marxism is a political and economic way of organizing society where the workers own the means of production. Socialism is a way of organizing a society in which the means of production are owned and controlled by the proletariat. Marx proposed that this was the next necessary step in the progress of history. Marxist theory, or let us call Marxist ideology, argued that profit margins are actually largely located in labor, thus labor has economic value. Capital may belong to the capitalist, but labor belongs to each man or woman, him or himself. This session will deal with the evaluation of Marxist literary theory from Karl Marx and angles to structuralist Marxism. The main objective will be to have an awareness about the impact of Marxism in our daily understanding of literary works. So this session includes the influence of Hegel on Karl Marx, Marx's notions about commodity, surplus value, ideology, and alienation. It is also deals with the Soviet socialist realism and Orthodox socialist realism of George Lucas. So the deliberations about realism and modernism by various thinkers like Bertolt and the stalwart Frankfurt School will also be dealt in detail. I wish my friend Tom Aziz all success throughout this session. I also welcome all present here in the platform, all sort of educationists of all level, belonging to various institutions, research scholars, PG and UG students of literature, and students from other departments also. I welcome all the faculty members and office staff of Kovilpatti Government College. I welcome all faculty members of my own department, and in a special way, Professor M. Gunasekaran, who is very soon going to be a doctorate in English literature, and Dr. Sangeetha, both the organizers who have made this webinar a successful one, and thanks to Professor Guna and Sangeetha. And a special welcome and thanks to our friend, as usual, K. Vignesh, our departmental and academic friend, a well-wisher. Welcome, Vignesh. Thank you also. Once again, I welcome you all for this astounding session and wish you all success. Thank you. Thank you, all the best. I request our principal to deliver the inaugural address. Sir, please.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning to everyone present here in the national level webinar platform organized by the PG Department of English, Government Arts and Science College, Kovilpatti. It gives me a great pleasure to deliver the inaugural address for the national webinar on Marxist literary theory, an introduction, organized by the PG Department of English of our college. I am totally taken up by the academic achievement of English department, and I wish them to flourish in the research and resourceful pursuit in the coming years. I feel proud Dr. Suresh Joseph, head of the Department of English, and all the faculty members of the Department of English who have involved themselves in the successful execution of the series of state, national, and international level webinars and conferences. So I congratulate the faculty members of the Department of English for their energies engaged in upraise the standard of educational manners by the way of coxswining such scholarly endeavors. Also, I wish them to hit in all their enterprises. My special appreciation and heartfelt thanks to Dr. Suresh Joseph, head of the Department of English, and Professor Gunasekaran and Dr.K.S.Sangeetha, the organizers of this amazing and remarkable inventiveness. Assure, you can be sure of the unrestrained sustenance from the administration part in the future for such vacant plans of the department. I feel happy in welcoming the resource person of the day, Dr. Asish Martin Tom, Assistant Professor of English, DB College of Kerala, who I came to know as an expert in the field of Marxist and Marxist theory. Marxism is a social, political, and economic theory organized by the Karl Marx, which focuses on the struggle between capitalist and working class. He believed that this conflict would ultimately lead to revolution in which the working class would overthrow the capitalist class and seize the control of the economy. In Marxist thought, communist society or the communist system is the type of the society, and economic system postulated to emerge from the technologies advanced in productive forces, representing the ultimate goal of the political ideology of communism. So Karl Marx was a philosopher of economics born in German states in 1818, who argued and created a class struggle between a rich factory owner and the working class. With this, I conclude my inaugural address and welcome the resource person to have a dynamic and sparkling time with this class. welcome one and all to have glowing and gleaming speculative get together and wish you all have a resourceful time with us. Thank you. All the best. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. I
Thank
welcome
you,
the
sir.
resource person to take the platform. Professor Thomas, it's your time. Welcome.
Sir. Respected Principal Ravichandran Rangaswamy, respected Head of the Department, Dr.Joseph Suresh, dear delegates, students, and friends. I think I am audible for all of you. Can you all hear me?
Yes, sir. Audible. You are audible, sir.
Okay. Okay. So I take this opportunity to thank Government Arts and Science College, Kovilpatti, principal, as well as my friend Joseph Suresh sir, for all the kind words they have talked about me. I express my gratitude because for his uh, uh, for this opportunity, because maybe this is one of the first webinar I am doing. So I'm a slight nervous, but still, let's see what we can do about it. So let's start with Marxian literary theory. As our principal, as well as Suresh sir has already said, it's a economic political philosophy. Marx hasn't said much about literature. He has said something, but he hasn't formulated anything much about literature as if to become a theory of its own. So what we call as literary theory is somewhat derivation. It's something that is derived from the ideas about ideas on politics and economy by Marx and Engels. So I think with this we will move straight to the subject, and now I will present my slide for you. I think you are able to see the slide, right? Can you see it?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes,
fine.
sir. Yes, sir.
So let's start. So Marxism, in a way, is a beautiful tale of a friendship, a very rare friendship between Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels. And let's now move into the basis. The three roots of Marxism. Here we are going to discuss about the influences that shaped Marx, Engels, and their philosophy. So one of the roots is obviously the classical German idealist philosophy of Hegel and Immanuel Kant. The second root is the theories on political economy of Adam Smith and Ricardo. Both were British economists. And the third is the French revolutionary theory, which actually poured down from the time of the French Revolution. So let's now move in detail. Hegel is a German idealist. I think you are familiar with what we mean by an idealist. For an idealist philosopher, it is the ideas, just like starting from Plato. Plato speaks about the immortal ideas. Like Plato, Hegel too was an idealist. And for Hegel, the matter is shaped by the ideas. And for Marx, what is important is Hegel's view on history, because unlike his predecessors, Hegel viewed history as a process. This is very important in understanding Marx, because Marx also sees history as a process, but not in the Hegelian way, but in other way. So Hegel actually saw history as a process. It is not a random set of contingent events, but it's a process. So he says,
Sir, you are not audible. Sir, your microphone is off, I think.
hello, hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sir, audible.
So have you heard my introduction?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Up to Hegel, you have heard.
Yes, Hegel. Up to Hegel. Idealism.
Okay, fine. So I don't know what happened. Something wrong with the mission, I think. So let's come back.
Sure, sir. You carry on.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay. So to understand one part, to understand a part, that's where I said it's a process. To understand one part demands an understanding of the whole. Since our world is an idea, is an idea or set of ideas, the history of our world is the history of these ideas and the way they are linked together. So Hegel believed that the world in which we live is the net result of idea. The world is shaped by ideas. The world and its institutions that make sense for us are governed by human and divine reason. So that was Hegel's view about the world, about history. So here you have what you call the Hegelian dialectic. So in order to express the process of history, in order to express the progress of ideas, Hegel actually brings the concept of dialectic. It's not a new thing. It's not Hegel who first suggested it. It is as ancient as the Greeks. So the Hegelian dialectic, dialectic is the logical pattern the thought must flow. It's a pattern. It's just a pattern, and the thoughts or ideas are supposed to follow this particular pattern. And for Hegel, as an idealist, any idea, anything short of the absolute, is full of contradictions. Or any idea which is short of the absolute, and the absolute is the perfect idea. So any idea which is short of the absolute is redundant, is full of contradictions. So the contradictions, the impurities, the drawbacks of these ideas has to be reduced, or it happens through the process what we call dialectic. And you're familiar with the three terms associated with dialectic. That is, thought proceeds by contradiction, and the overall pattern being one of the thesis, antithesis, and synthesis. And the very synthesis becomes another thesis, which will be followed by antithesis, synthesis. This will go on till you reach the absolute. That's what Hegel said. So what is remarkable about this dialectic is progressive. You are bettering through this process. The ideas become better through this process. That's what we call Hegelian dialectic. So what Marx was influenced by Hegel, but actually what Marx did was he inverted the Hegelian dialectic. And you know the fundamental difference between Marx and Hegel. Hegel is an idealist German philosopher, whereas Marx is a materialist German philosopher. So he used the same dialectic to look at the world from the other end. For him, it is the matter, the material realities of the world that shapes the realm of ideas. So Marx borrows the Hegelian dialectic, but denies that thought is the fundamental reality. That's why I have said earlier, Marx is a materialist. So for him, unlike Hegel, who said thought uh, constitutes the reality, Marx says thought is not the fundamental reality. And Marx makes a distinction, makes a category called a differentiation between subjective and objective dialectics. The objective dialectic um hold, so in nature, you have what you call the objective dialectics as well as subjective dialectics. Objective dialectics happens, what is the movement of the things in the nature, the how nature shapes itself, the change in the modes of production or the change in the system, all this comes under the objective dialectics. Subjective dialectics is the reflection in thought of the objective dialectic. So Marx actually inverts it, and he uh, further states in Capital, Volume 1, may I quote from it. He says, my own dialectic method is not only different from the Hegelian, he says it's different from the Hegelian, but it is direct opposite. It is direct opposite. I'm going against Hegel. For Hegel, the thinking process is the Demagogue, or that may be the German word, the creator of the real world. The world, the thought creates the world. And the real is only the outward manifestation of the idea. With me, on the other hand, the ideal is nothing else than the material world reflected by the human mind and translated into terms of thought. Unquote. So Marx actually inverts it, and he says that the ideal is nothing else than the material. So what you call an idea is the reflection of the material world. That's what Marx says. Then, so from here, what you call the term called historical materialism. Actually, Marx never used the term historical materialism. It was later used by his friend Engels. So the Marxian dialectic, or the historical materialism, is this materialistic conception of history. Or in other words, the union of a society's productive forces and relations of production fundamentally determine the society's organization and development. I repeat, the union of a society's productive forces and relation of production fundamentally determine society's organization and development. Marxism, at least in the beginning, was a philosophy of economic determinism. So it is the economic reality, which includes the productive forces. The productive forces includes the capital, the capitalist forces, workers, and how the nature of the labor, how the workers are located in relation to the system, all these things, your location within the system, and how the society is configured, it actually determines the society's organization and development. That's what Marx says. So, historical materialism, it's from the 18th Brumaire of Louis Bonaparte by Karl Marx. I quote, men make their own history, but they do not make it just as they please. They do not make it under circumstances chosen by themselves, but under circumstances directly found, given, and transmitted from the past. The tradition of all dead generation weigh like a nightmare on the brain of the living. Marx appears very poetic when he says the tradition of all dead generation weighs on us like a nightmare on the brain of the living. So such a continuity, such a continuity is there in history, and we make our own history, but the situations in which whether we have the freedom to make our own history, whether we could make it under the circumstances chosen by us. These are all myths because we are living in a present which is configured by the past, and you cannot escape from that present. You don't have any choice about that. So let's move. Consciousness and ideology. I think this statement, which is there in a contribution to the critique of political economy by Marx, if you could understand this statement, then you could start thinking from the perspective of Marx. He says, "Quote, the mode of production of material life conditions, the mode of production of material life conditions, the general process of social, political, and intellectual life." Then comes, I think this is one of the best and important statements made by Marx as far as I am concerned. It is not the consciousness of men that determines their existence, but their social existence that determines their consciousness. I repeat, it is not the consciousness of men that determines their existence, but their social existence determines their consciousness, which means your thought are not essential, which are not unique, which are not your own subjective expressions, but your thought or the very you is the product of your existence. In simple sense, if you are a capitalist, then your consciousness will be that of a capitalist. You think, you see the world from the eyes of a capitalist. If you are a proletariat, if part of the proletariat, then your consciousness is will be shaped or will be affected, influenced by the way in which you are located to the means of production. So this is what you call a kind of historic determinism, economic determinism, because your existence in the in the modes of production, where you are located within the modes of production, actually determine who you are. Then let's move. So this consciousness is your views about the world, and later this can be also considered as ideology, because ideology, according to Marx, ideology is a crucial term in Marxism. Ideology, according to Marx, is false consciousness. Your false notions about the world. You have false notions about the world because your consciousness is the result of the area in which you are located. So we will discuss that concept of ideology later. We will proceed further. So then you have the famous architectural metaphor of base structure and superstructure. The base structure comprises the forces and relations of production. That is the material base of production. Superstructure comprises the culture, institutions, political power structures, roles, rituals, and even the state. The state, even the very idea of state, belongs to the superstructure. And for Marx, the relation of the two parts is not unidirectional. Marx gives some areas where the superstructure um is not in a way fully influenced by the base, but it's not unidirectional. It's mutually influence each other, but the influence of the base is predominant. So again, he repeats the idea of economic determinism, where the base, the protection of the economy, actually determines the superstructure. So take the case of religion, which is part of the superstructure. Take the case of the concept of God in the Old Testament, where you have a wrathful, powerful God in the Old Testament. If you're a Marxist, you could see that the very God as an idea was the product of the superstructure. Am I audible for you? Hello?
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Oh, okay, okay. So the time of during the time of the Old Testament, if you look at the material reality of the world, if you look at the institution that was prevalent during the time of the Old Testament, you have a system of slaves and slave masters. So such a system gives the notion or shapes the idea of a wrathful God, a God who is ready to punish you even for minor sins. He's like a tough taskmaster. Whereas you come to the New Testament, at that time the system of slavery has gradually disintegrated. And when you come to the New Testament, you have a totally new image of God, especially the Christ image of a good shepherd. So the very idea of a good shepherd, the God as a good shepherd, is again shaped by the material reality. And in an agrarian society, in an agrarian nomadic society, which is based on cattle rearing and sheep rearing and other small scale agriculture things.
Professor Thomas is.
Yes.
Professor, a small request.
Okay.
We are unable to see the PPT, PowerPoint presentations.
Okay.
See to it. Okay.
I will do it once again.
As well as a little, if you possible, the volume can be raised.
Okay, I will do it.
Okay. Thank you. So kind of you.
One second, sir. Am I more audible now? Am I audible? Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, audible.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, fine.
Professor, okay, we can continue, Professor.
Okay, one second.
Thank you.
Now, can you see the PowerPoint? Can you see it?
No, sir.
Can you see the PowerPoint now?
No, sir.
Something has gone wrong. One second. Let me try again. Cancel.
Sir, we are listening you. Go on, please.
Okay. One second. Let me open it in a window. Yeah. Now, can you see the PowerPoint?
No, sir.
No, sir. Not yet.
Yeah, I'm
Now,
sharing.
yes,
Not
it
yet.
is. It is now.
Okay, sir.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So
Okay.
Yes, sir, we
we
got.
were, we
It's
were
okay, sir.
discussing
Go
how
on,
the
please.
base structure. We were discussing how the base structure creates the way shapes the idea. So you have the notion of good shepherd, and the notion of good shepherd makes sense in from
Go
an
on, please.
agrarian nomadic community life. So that's it. So similarly, I will give you more examples as we proceed further. So now let us move to some of the basic ideas, economic theories and insights of Marx. First is the theory of commodity. And what is a commodity? That's what the question asked by Marx. And he says, in Capital itself, he says, a thing that by its properties satisfies human wants of some sort of or another. A commodity is something that satisfies a need. It can be a physical need or it can be an intellectual need. And he further elaborates on this and he says a commodity has use value as well as exchange value. Commodity has use value as well as exchange value. And uh, he defines exchange value of a commodity as the value of one commodity is to the value of another as the labor time necessary for the production of one is to the other. So Marx asks the question, what determines the exchange value? Take the case of a barter system, of an ancient barter system which existed in the BCs or even before that. Suppose you are a farmer and you produce milk and you rear cattle. That's your job, and you produce milk, and maybe you will sell 1 liter of milk, and for that you may get maybe half kilo of rice. So the exchange value. So there is a ratio, right? What determines the ratio? What determines the ratio? So Marx gives a much more simple example. I think it's an example of pen and pencil, where you can give 5 pencil and get 1 pen, because the time, the labor required to produce a pen is much greater than that of a pencil. So anyway, it is the labor is the major parameter that actually determines the exchange value. The labor actually determines the exchange value. Then let's move further. Then you have the theory of surplus value. Theory of surplus value. This is very fundamental because uh, he actually describes theory of surplus value to show that our consciousness or our awareness, our perspective about the world is false, is not correct. So surplus value is equal to the new value created by workers in excess of their own labor cost, which is appropriated by the capitalist as profit when products are sold. Okay, so I will give you a small example. Suppose you are a merchant. You are a merchant and you sell furnitures. Okay, You are in business, you sell furniture. Suppose you bought a particular tree, maybe a teak wood tree for 1,000 rupees. And with the help of workers, you converted that wood into a chair, maybe 4 chairs from a tree, and you have given them another um, 250 for each chair for the workers. So the total cost of production is somewhere around 2,000 rupees. And then you are going to sell the very chair in the market, and you are going to so the total cost is around 2,000, and you are going to sell it for maybe for around 1,000 rupees for a chair. So that is going to fetch you around 4,000 rupees. So your uh, initial cost is around 2,000 rupees, and the profit becomes 4,000 minus 2,000. You got around 2,000 rupees as profit, almost 100% profit from the venture. And how this surplus value was created? That's a question again asked by Marx. This is a very interesting paradigm. This method of thinking is sometimes even is applied to work of arts to have a better understanding about it. So Marx says, again, it is the labor. It is the labor. If the labor is not there, if the labor and the skill of the worker is not there, there won't be that surplus value. But since the capitalist, the owner, controls the means of production, he actually believes that he has the right for the surplus value. And the workers also believes that, because the system, the very idea of base structure and superstructure, where the base, this material mode of production, believes that, it makes us believe that, or gives us the notion that, gives us the sense that, gives us the sense of justice that it is rightfully belongs to the owner or the capitalist. So this is what you call the theory of surplus value. I will give you another example, because this theory of surplus value can be interpreted, or can be interpreted in our day-to-day realities in many ways. Just stick on to the paradigm of surplus, and instead of value, add something called surplus time. Just think about the students who studied in your college 30 years ago. What they were doing. There were no enough transportation facilities. They never had the luxury of mobile phones. Even Xerox machines were not available. They can't even think about online classes. With great difficulty, they may have arrived the college, and what all things that were said in the class, and what all things they wanted to collect from the library, they have to write it down. They may have spent around much more time for transportation. And when they reach home also, the homes were not as technologized as if when we compare with the present. So they may have to pull water from the well. They may have to many other times. So they have to work. They have to struggle much more time than us. But again, you make a comparison between the old generation and us. Who will be more busy? Who is more busy? As far as our knowledge is concerned, we tend to say that we are more busy. We are in short of time. The modern man is in short of time, whereas the older generation, they had enough time. Again, the question comes, if you look at logically, we should have, or we are supposed to have surplus time, because technology is there. Instead of writing an entire paper down from the library, you could just make a snapshot of it with your mobile phone, or you could even take it to the Xerox shop to get it Xeroxed. So likewise, there are many gadgets that have actually saved our time, but still we are in short of time. What happens to the surplus time? So that's a very interesting question. And you may have the surplus time is actually stolen from us by the mass media. That is what happening. The surplus time is actually stolen by the mass media. And Frankfurt School speaks about the mass media and the mass culture in detail. So we'll continue. And another way, I think you have the habit of uh, watching movies. And what comes to my mind is a Malayalam film. I don't know some of you, how many of you have seen it. It's a movie called Ennu Ninte Moyithu. It's about a platonic love affair. I think you're familiar with forget the film. It's about a platonic love affair between a girl and a boy. They actually spend around 10 years in this platonic love affair. Then the boy dies, and the girl continued to live in the memory of the boy. So, it's a real life story that was made later into film. So, during their love affair, they even developed a secret code, a secret language, which only they could understand. Even the love letters is when the love letter is confiscated by the parents, they can't understand it because it's a new language, exclusively devised for their communication. So such things all happens. But and they spend around 10 years by thinking about each other. Here also the question comes, from where does from where they get this surplus time? And the answer lies in the fact that both the boy and the girl are son and daughter of feudal landlords. If you are born in a feudal as a son or the daughter of a feudal landlord, then time will be surplus for you. There is no need for you to worry about it because. But take the case of a working class man. Can a working class man can have the luxury of what you call this platonic love? Can he supposed to have sleepless night thinking about his love? No, it's not be possible because he will be working from morn to night, and most probably he will be tired. And there is every chance, even though his love may be great, but his body, because of the daily work, he may fall asleep. So, so behind every idea, the very idea is shaped by the material reality. I said this example, I don't know to what extent you could relate to it, but every idea is actually shaped by the material reality. Take the case of the notions of family. We tend to believe that the family is the final form, is in its final form. The nuclear family is in its final form. This family existed from time immemorial. These were your views. So what Marx called the primitive capitalism, the early stages of food gatherers, the notions about family was totally different. During the time of the slaves and slave owners, the notion about family was totally different. During the time of the feudal lords, feudalism, the notions about family was entirely different. Now, the present day notions, which we call essential notions or so-called every notions associated with our modern family, is the result of, or I'm not making it a what you call a sweeping statement, but much of it is determined by the much of them is determined by the material modes of production or the capitalist economy makes our family like this. It's not the other way around. It's not the other way around. Our family is designed by the capitalist in such a way that the very family will ensure regular production of workers. That's it. Okay, let's move further. So that's a theory of surplus value. So then Marx then goes to define what is labor. What is labor? And again, I caught from Capital, labor in the first place, a process in which both man and nature participate, and in which man of his own accord starts, regulates, and controls the material reaction between himself and nature. So labor in first place, it's a, so I'm moving a bit with a certain pace now because it's already 10:48. He opposes himself to the nature as one of her forces. That is again very important because, you know, if you could expand that statement, that is what you call the eco-Marxist point of view comes from this. Man opposes nature, but as one of her forces, setting in motion arms and legs, head and hands, the natural forces of his body, in order to appropriate nature's production in a form adapted to his own wants. And the last lines are very important. By acting thus on the eternal world and changing it, he at the same time changes his own nature. So the dialectic of labor is given because man is part of nature, is one of the forces of nature, but man, when it comes to labor, he works against nature, though he or she is one of the forces of nature. And by doing labor, man changes the external world, man changes the material world. At the same time, the material world or the work he is performing changes himself also. The material world or the work he performs actually changes himself also. Okay. So now you come to the next thing called, the next important thing, because this is a very important thing as far as Marxism is concerned, the theory of alienation. Alienated means is to have a fractured or improper or distance or estranged relationship to something. You are alienated from your friend means you are not going, you are not able to retain the old warmth with your friend. Just think about the situation. What will happen if you are going to meet after 10 or 20 years for one of your alumni meets? How many of you will be able to maintain the same warmth and affection? So, you will be alienated to a certain extent because the situations, the life may have changed. But here the alienation is somewhat different. I think you got the idea. It's about a dysfunctioning relationship, a fractured, improper, distance, estranged relationship. And Marx speaks about three kinds of alienation. The three kinds of alienation include: we are alienated from our work, we are alienated from each other, we are alienated as a species. And just imagine a feudal economy. Take the case of a blacksmith who makes knives for the entire community in the village. He is the one who provides knife for the entire village. Or maybe take the case of a carpenter who makes chairs or who makes cots for the entire village. He's not working on the basis of mass production, because capitalism, mass production actually happened with capitalism. The feudal economy, a carpenter or a blacksmith produces things as per its need. Suppose you need a knife, you will visit a blacksmith and you will say, I am in need of a knife, and he will say, okay, come after 2 days, I will make one for you. So that's it. So there, that the blacksmith is not actually alienated from his product. So Marx very beautifully says, work is the expression of oneself. The work becomes the expression of oneself. So he is making something and he's happy, there is a kind of fulfillment, there is a kind of happiness when he sees the product of his labor. So he is not alienated from his product. But with capitalism, something entered, something called the division of labor, because capitalism works on perpetual greed. The profit has to be, the profit has to be, am I audible? Am I audible?
Sir, okay. Okay, Professor, okay. You can continue.
Okay. Okay. So we are with capitalism, what you call the division of labor steppings. Whereas, take the case of a tailor, and in the case of the blacksmith and the carpenter, they will be respected by the society. That when they reach a home, they may say, "Oh, this is a cot, or this is a knife which just made my knee," and he's happy, and the others too agree with, yeah, this was made by this man, and this is good. So the work becomes an expression of self. But in a capitalist society, because the capitalism works on greed, the profit has to be increased again and again. They have to increase the production, increase the rate of production. So take the case of a tailor who actually stitches shirts. So the capitalist changes the way of production. The poor tailor may produce 2 or 3 shirts in a day. When it comes under the capitalist mode of production, the capitalist may ask one person to cut the pieces, cut the cloth into pieces. He may ask one person to stitch the collar. He may ask another person to sew the buttons. He may ask another person to stitch the hands, so that at the end of the day, suppose in the earlier times, for
Hello, sir. Sir, you have been muted by someone, sir.
Hello, Vignesan? Sir?
can you hear me now?
Yes, of course, of course, of course.
Okay.
Thank you.
It gets unmuted. It gets muted. I don't know how
Yes,
it
sir.
happens.
Okay. Continue.
Okay. So what we were saying is, okay. So the 4 workers in a factory, if the labor is divided like this, they may end up in producing maybe 25 to 30 shirts, which is far greater than 8 shirts. And capitalist sees it as the effectiveness of the system. But what happens when you look at it from the point of view of the worker? He is alienated from his product. He cannot take that final product in his hand and say that, look, I produced this. This is the sweat of my labor. He can't say that. It's not the money, it's not the pay he takes back. But in spite of the pay, he feels alienated with his product. If you want a familiar reality for us, take the case of a Swiggy boy who delivers food to our house, and compare it with your mother who actually deliver you food. Maybe you know the difference, because for mother, the mother will ask, how was the food? And the mother may feel happy if I say, Amma, this food is good. The mother obviously be happy, because the very food, your breakfast is actually the product of her labor, and she is not alienated from it. Take the case of a Siggy boy. Even if you say to the Siggy boy, look, it was nice food, he won't be affected by it, because he's alienated. He's actually becoming someone else, just a deliverer of the thing. Take the case of a farmer who actually gathers from his farm, and take the case of a man of a seller who sells that vegetable in the market. So the alienation steps in, the alienation of the worker from the work happens in capitalist system. This is very important because it goes against, it makes us inhuman, because we are devoid of our satisfaction, and we are alienated. Secondly, we are alienated from each other. Marx says humans were supposed to be very cooperative human beings, but since the mode of production is capitalist, capitalism thrives by making you a competitor with your friend. Look, I have to study this much, otherwise I won't get this mark. And what will happen? My friend may score good marks and he may land up with a job. Take the case of a worker in a workplace. If I haven't worked like this, the other person may work uh, more, and there is a chance that he may even take my place. So the man is alienated from other man. So there is no ground for cooperation. So that is what you call the alienation from each other. Then, and secondly, and thirdly, we are alienated as a species. We cease to remain as human. That's what Marx says. So this is very important when we speak about alienation. Then, the next is he makes a prophecy. Prophecy has gone wrong, but I think it's interesting to know the prophecy made by Marx. So the prophecy goes like this. May I quote? It also appears in capital. Along with the hello, can you hear me?
Yes,
Continue,
sir, can
continue.
carry on.
Okay, okay.
Then, along with the constantly diminishing number of the magnates of capital, who usurp and monopolize all advantages of this process of transformation, grows the mass of misery, oppression, slavery, degradation, exploitation. But with this too grows the revolt of the working class, a class always increasing in numbers and disciplined, united, organized by the very mechanism of the process of capitalist production itself. The monopoly of capital becomes a fetter upon the mode of production, which has sprung up and flourished along with and under it. The centralization of the means of production and socialization of labor at last reach a point where they become incompatible with their capitalist integument. This integument means the outer layer, the outer shield. Integument is burst asunder. So the capitalist integument will burst asunder. The knell of capitalist private property sounds. The, the expropriators are expropriated. So the means of production will be taken over by the workers. So the class antagonism will come to an end. The dialectic will come to an end. There will be what you call a kind of socialism where even the states will wither away. That's what Marx prophecy. But this prophecy has gone wrong, and we will look how different schools of Marxism approach this prophecy. Then, so let's now come back to what Marx has actually said about literature. Marx himself was a writer. He has written one play, and he was very much fond of Greek classics. And after his death in 1890s, Engels actually published some of his letters with Marx. And in these letters, Engels actually brings the idea of relatively autonomous nature of art and philosophy. Though economic aspect of the society is the ultimate determinant, philosophy, art, and other forms of consciousness are relatively autonomous. So that's what the final stand, as per Engels, which we know about through the correspondence between Engels and Marx. literature and art belong to the ideological sphere. They are part of the superstructure, but possess a relationship to ideology, which is often less direct than is found in the case of religious, legal, and philosophical systems. So Marx and Engels actually says that though art and literature belongs to the superstructure, the relationship between the base and the superstructure, as far as art and literature is concerned, is often less direct than in the case of religious, legal, and philosophical systems. So let's move. Now, let's start with the first school within Marxism. That is obviously the Soviet socialist realism. So it is the official, about the Bolshevik revolution, how the Tsars were replaced by the working class men under Lenin. So, and the establishment of former United Soviet Socialist Republic. So, Soviet socialist realism is an official communist artistic method. It identifies the 19th century Russian realism as the suitable foundation for the aesthetics of the new communist society. And the three important principles of Soviet socialist realism are principle of party-nost, that is the official party line, the principle of narrow-nost, that is the popularity. Party-nost means literature or the writers are supposed to follow the official party line. They have to move for the benefit of the party. So one of the biggest acquisitions against Soviet socialist realism is that it actually degenerated art into propaganda. So you have to follow the party thing. And actually it comes from the statement made by Lenin. Initially he said, from here onwards, those who are going to write in the party magazines must follow the party line. But after the revolution, what happened was that the party took control over all party magazines. A writer who is not willing to accept the party position won't be able to write anything more. Okay. Then the next is narrative, that is popularity. So again, this concept can be, the art must be popular. It must give the mass a proper awareness about the conditions in which they are living. Moreover, we have already discussed what we call alienation. The art must able to recapture the lost allness of the common man. And as per the principle of Naragnos, folk arts, they considered a particular genre as people's art. And again, a small digression, which I forgot to say earlier. You could again look at, use the same idea of base structure and superstructure, and you could analyze the genres. Take the case of a tragedy. Tragedy is obviously a genre of the feudal times, whereas novel is the genre of the working class, or it may be a genre that is direct link to the aspirations of the middle class. Okay, there is an interesting book by Ian Watt about the rise of the novel. Okay, we will move forward. Then, principle of Clausewitz, that is class interest and social realism. So by social realism, he means the art must be realistic, the characters must be portrayed in realistic light, and the work of art must reveal insights into the social developments of the time. Not only reflects the reality, but it goes into the reality, and the very work of art actually gives an awareness about the problems of ideology as far as the working class is concerned. Then the class interest, it includes the class of the writer as well as the class of the characters. So, so-called dull Marxist approach to literature, they look for the class of the writer and the social class of its characters. Okay, so these were the important principles, and the Soviet socialist realism, they were in vogue for a considerable period of time. Trotsky was there, Rodak was there, many other theoreticians were there, and they actually propagated a particular kind of literature that actually embraces the party cause as literature. Then, so that's about Soviet socialist realism. Let's move further. So, there is an interesting person called Georgy Plekhanov, and the Plekhanov statements, actually I found it from the net. He's a very new person for me also. I think we must read something more about him. And Plekhanov, he makes an interesting statement about the Marxian approach to literature. He's Russian. The social mentality of an age is conditioned by that age social relation. So I think it beautifully sums up the classical Marxist approach to literature. The social mentality of an age is conditioned by that age social relations. Reading a work of literature in the context of history helps us. Excuse me. Am I audible?
Yes, sir, audible, sir.
Okay.
Yes,
Sir, audible, you can continue.
Okay. Reading a work of literature in the context of history helps us to identify the world of ideologies it inhabits. So a work of art, when you place it within the historical context, when you place it in the history, when you place it in the dialectic of history, historical materialism, you will be able to identify the ideology or the ideologies it inhabits and what function it performs in the complex network of social relations. Every text gets its meaning when you place it in the context of history. Okay, so let's move further. So now you have a thinker called George Lukács. Lukács actually can be called the first major Marxist theoretician and critic as far as literary theory, as far as Marxian literary theory is concerned. He is the first major critic, the Hungarian Marxist. And he was a champion of what he called the Orthodox Socialist realist school. Almost like the Russians, but he gives much more freedom to the writer, but there are certain conditions are there. The term reflection is very important for Lukács because he can be also called a Hegelian Marxist, where he says a literary work for Lukács is a reflection of an unfolding system. A realistic work must reveal the underlying pattern of contradictions in a social order. A good work, a literary work, is a reflection of the system, of the very system. Some of you have seen the Desica's movie, Bicycle Thieves, that black and white movie, where The movie is about the loss of a particular bicycle that belonged to a working class man. And once he lost his bicycle, he's not able to work anymore because his work was closely associated with that bicycle. So he is reduced to poverty, and he searches here and there for the bicycle. And throughout the movie, the movie follows the personal anecdotes of a particular person, of a working class person, the movie clearly exposes the inhuman system before us. And it exposes in such a way that we even forget who has stolen it. We don't feel anger for the person who has stolen the bicycle, but we feel real anger against the set of persons who has actually made such an inhuman system where man is reduced to such pitiable level. So that's what he says. A realist work must reveal the underlying pattern of contradictions in a social order. And he denounced naturalism and modernism. These are all avant-garde movements. I'm not going to explain what they are, but he denounced naturalism by saying that a random presentation of an objective reality is not enough, or the random presentation about a subjective reality is also not enough, hence modernism. So he rejected it, and he actually speaks about uh, uh, he says Lukács rejects merely photographic representation. Instead, he describes the truly realistic work, which gives us a sense of the artistic necessity of the images present. They possess an intensive totality, which corresponds to the extensive totality of the world itself. So, a work of art must have an intensive totality as well as an extensive totality. That's what his view. And he has published a number of works like the historical novel, Studies in European Realism, The Meaning of Contemporary Realism, and so on. So let's move. And he stick to the notion of real. And this very idea of what is real was a bit problematic, which actually gave ground for the theoreticians that followed him chances for questioning him. So both the Soviet school as well as George Lucas, they embraced the 19th century realism. They embraced the 19th century realism, which is the realism of writers like Balzac and all. The 19th century realism was the real model. So they said that instead all work must be like this. And that 19th century realism was nothing but the realism of the bourgeois class, the realism of the house in the society. That realism has nothing to do with the realism of the have-nots of the society. That's one of the biggest acquisition leveled against both Soviet school as well as George Lucas. So now let's move to the next thinker. It's actually Bertolt Brecht. Brecht is a German playwright and critic. Brecht actually questioned the very notion of realism. Brecht was a very problematic figure. He went exile from Germany. He went to America, and then again he was brought before the infamous McCarthy Commission. Later he came back to Germany after the fall of Hitler and all. So Brecht was deeply moved and influenced by Marx theory. And like Marx, Marx makes another very important statement. The statement is that he defines the role of philosophy. And he says, philosophers have only interpreted the world in various ways. Philosophers so far have only interpreted the world in various ways. The point is to change it. So Marx was never an armchair philosopher. And once he said, if I was not moved by the misery of man, if I was not moved by the misery of man, I would have become a teacher in a college or something like that. Maybe one of the biggest take against college teachers like us. So Marx was never an armchair theorist. He believed that the function, the relevance of philosophy lies in its ability to change the world. And Brecht also viewed art as a tool to change the world. In his aesthetic concepts, he is anti-Aristotelian. I think students of literature are well aware with the Aristotelian principles about tragedy and the things he has said in poetics. So Aristotle wants the audience to empathize with the characters in the tragedy. Aristotle wants the dramatist to maintain the triple unity so that the entire drama, the entire event will appear more real. He wanted verisimilitude, the appearance of reality must be there so that the audience will identify it, they will empathize with it, they will cry along with the downfall of the hero, and they will and the tears will bring what you call purgation of emotions called catharsis, and he will go out of the theater by purifying his own emotions. That's what Aristotle said. So Brecht was totally against this. That's why I said Brecht is anti-Aristotelian, because for Brecht, the spectator must not identify with the audience. If you identify with someone, if you empathize with someone, you lose your ability to critically engage in the situation. You lose your ability to critically analyze the factors that actually shape that particular situation. So instead of identifying with the spectator, he wanted to distance the spectator from the play. For that he used, and this is a central concept of epic theater. So he wanted to avoid lulling the audience into a state of passive acceptance. The illusion of reality, which actually stressed by Aristotle, for Brecht, the illusion of reality must be shattered by the use of alienation effect. So that's the purpose. The alienation effect is used to shatter the illusion of reality. So, for example, a play by Brecht won't have a proper plot. Instead, it will have certain situations, certain random selected situations. Or the characters, they use, instead of acting, they use epigrammatic gestures. Just like the clown, they have certain standard gestures. And always the suspense is broken, because maybe there will be a cupboard on the neck of one character, and in the cupboard it may be written what is going to happen in the next scene. So through all these ways, Brecht wanted to prevent the audience from identifying with the character, so that the person who views a work of art, he will be able to think from the distance, about the work and the situations that is depicted in the work. So that was Brecht's view, and Brecht was also a Marxist, and he actually was well aware that the 19th century realism was nothing but the bourgeois realism, and as we move further, the new situations need new kinds of representation. He was very much aware about it. So now we will move to the Frankfurt School. Frankfurt School, actually, as the name indicates, it starts in Germany. And in 1926, they moved to America. There they work in New York with Columbia University. Later, after the World War, at first the Frankfurt School, they later shift to Geneva. From Geneva, they go to America. And from America, after the Second World War, they come back to Frankfurt, which was in East Germany at that time. So important theoreticians of this school are Theodor Adorno, Herbert Marcuse, Mark Horkheimer. These are all important figures associated with the school. And this school is very, very, very important because this school has actually played a crucial role in determining the methodology and the pedagogy of humanities taught all over the world in various universities. And what Frankfurt School suggested was an idea called critical theory. That's a wide-ranging form of social analysis based on Hegelian Marxism and Freudian psychology. So they, in simple sense, I could say that Frankfurt School, they actually found Marxian philosophy inadequate. So they clubbed it with Freudian psychology. And if you ask why they clubbed Marxism with Freudian psychology, because I think you remember about the prophecy made by Marx. Marx was very much sure that the industrial societies will soon come under revolution and new socialist regimes will take the place of these industrial society. But that doesn't happen. And the only revolution that was happened was in Russia. And Russia was not an industrialized society as far as Europe was concerned. It was still belonging to the feudal age as far as the mode of production was concerned. This actually shocked them. And secondly, the totalitarian regime that followed the Russian Revolution, especially under Lenin and Stalin, further increased their shock. Also, the horrors of the First World War. So they were very critical about the very notions of enlightenment that generated theories like Marxism. And they wanted to correct Marxism. They wanted to make Marxism much more perfect. So they believed that to understand the horrors of the First World War and to understand the horrors of the Second World War and to understand the totalitarian regimes that followed in Russia after the revolution, you must have a proper understanding about the psychology of human beings. And that's why they clubbed Marxism with psychology. Okay, then, but they are very much sure about the power of art. They considered art and philosophy as the only theater of resistance in the 20th century. They stressed the importance of art and philosophy. And they analyzed the capitalist countries, particularly the America and the many European countries. And they socially analyzed the capitalist society, and they focused on the laws of the individual autonomy in the new totalitarian organization of late capitalist society. For further, I will just explain a bit more. Sorry, sir, it's already 11:25. I think you will give me 10 more minutes, sir.
Okay, Professor, you can continue. No problem. Continue.
Okay. Am I boring you, friends?
No. That's highly interesting. You can go again.
Okay, so they actually analyzed the mass culture, the popular culture, the mass media and its impact, which we have already made some. I have already made some hint. So the capitalism, as we have seen earlier, it alienates people. It is against the very nature of human beings. It actually makes us work like an object. And we work, why we work? We work to own a box. We need a house. Which is pretty much a box in which you will be secluded from the external world. And this highly alienated individual, the spiritual absence, uh, spiritual absence that is felt by this working class who are supposed to work like objects is very severe. So the capitalism will make you work and they will give you leisure. And the leisure is again, if you look at the family itself, the family is a place, is another capitalist institution where the working men, after working like an object in the factory, once he comes back to the house, the arrangement is in such a way that he will feel as if he is a capitalist, because uh, even within the four walls of the home, he has a say, or he controls everything just like his manager or the capitalist. So once he comes back, there is a void. There is a void because man is not meant to be, man as a species is not meant to be, to live like this. So, so in order to fill that void, capitalism feels that okay, this man, these are all suffering from a particular void. So we want to fill it. This is an opportunity. So capitalism sees an opportunity in every problem. Just like Corona has been an opportunity for them to sell more and more what you call tabs, mobiles, and all. So they actually, there is a need. He needs something. He needs something to make. He won't be able to reconquer his allness, but he needs something, at least to divert him. So they actually what you call the mass media, where inside the box you will be given another box where you can consume things, imaginary things. And look at the popular culture. Look at the popular TV serials or cinemas. Take the case of Bahubali, or take the case of all those superheroes. Why are we fond of superheroes? Do superheroes have anything to do with our reality, the reality in which we are living? Spider may bite us, but we won't change into a Spider-Man, right? With that immense power. But still, why we are fond of? We know that it's improbable. It's not going to happen. We know that none of us can become Bahubalis. But still, why? Why we like them? Because these movies, these art, they actually make us forget about the world, the contradictions, and the misery in which we are living. So mass media have actually taken the function of religion in capitalist times or late capitalist times. This is what the Frankfurt School says. And they are very aware about our consumption rate. Take the case of all movies you have seen, all the romantic comedies, sitcoms, and other things you have seen. Where take the case of the romantic comedy. Take the case of a romantic comedy you have seen 10 years back. There will be a boy and a girl. They will fall in love, and naturally there will be a villain. The villain may be a next door neighbor, and the hero may beat the villain, or the girl and the boy together may beat the villain, and they marry and they live happily ever after. So naturally, the system actually makes you believe that these kind of intimately subjective experiences are your goal as a human being. Your ambition ends with marriage, and you feel that you will live happily ever after by looking at this reality. Take the case of the same another romantic comedy which you have seen recently. There also you have the boy and the girl, but the villain won't be the next door neighbor, but the villain may be the girl's father or someone else. The same thing, the same structure is repeated again and again. Just like the mobile phones which you have in your hand. Because what is the difference between a Moto G7 and a Moto G8? The function is the same, but to make you consume, to make you feel that, okay, I got a contemporary thing in my hand, the system is devised in such a way that you consume, you go on consume again and again. Okay, so let me conclude. So I think you got some rough idea about Marxism. I am skipping the next slide since it's 11:30. Let's move to the final one. This is the question is whether Marxism is relevant. I don't think that Marxism is something entirely about revolution, because revolutions revolutions depends on many other things also. But what makes Marxism special is that it gives us an acute understanding about the situations in which we live, how we define ourselves, how we look at the world in which we live. That's the importance. So that kind of acute awareness is certainly progressive. So I will be very happy if next time, dear students, when you go to a mobile shop, when you buy something, if these ideas of use value and exchange value comes to your mind, I really believe that the decision you will take after that will be much different. So this kind of acute awareness about the system and the contradictions within the system will certainly make you a better man. So may I end with a quote by Terry Eagleton, Why Marx Was Right. That's a book by him. After all, if you do not resist the apparently inevitable, you will never know how inevitable the inevitable was. Let me read it once again. After all, if you do not resist the apparently inevitable, you will never know how the inevitable was. Okay. Once again, thank you all for your patient listening. Over to Suresh sir.
Hello, everybody. Hello, am I audible? Hello.
Yes, sir.
Hello. Okay. Hello. Good morning once again. Thank you for my best friend and today's resourceful person, Martin Aziz Tom. Thanks a lot for having engaged us for about 1.5 hours. And I am sure, I was very confident. I am confident and I was very confident that you can do wonders. And you did it. You have proved that you are an expert in Marxism and Marxist theory. You have dealt it in a detailed way. No one can deny it. Such a detailed manner you have discussed, and with the very simple words. That's the main thing that we have to observe. Or else, understanding Marx and Marxist theory or under literary background is something might have been little difficult for students of PG and UG who are also in part of this national conference. So you have made it very simple and made it very lively in a detailed manner also. And on behalf of the PG Department of English, on behalf of the college, principal, and the head of the Department of English, I once again thank you. Thank you. Sure to be with us in the future also. Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you all for your patient listening.
Now we can switch over to Dr. Sangeetha for proposing vote of thanks. I invite Dr. Sangeetha, please.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Before that, madam, 1 minute. Dr. Thomas, Professor Thomas is, am I audible to you?
Yes, I can hear you, sir.
Okay. While the conference is on, I was observing the message chat box. Okay. I was messaging. We had a wonderful feedback. We had a wonderful feedback from all states of India. There are people from other states also. We had a wonderful, even when we had some interruption due to the PowerPoint presentation, people said through the chat box, sir, don't delay. Let him continue his speech. We can have the PowerPoint in mail also or in WhatsApp group. So that way they were much taken up by your way of delivering the Marxist theory. Okay. So we are happy to have such feedbacks from participants. And I once again thank you. Thank you. We will meet again either through such a video conferencing or lively to our college also in the future. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Madam, Dr. Sangeetha, you can proceed.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. The root of all goodness lies in the soil of appreciation for goodness. As per the saying, appreciation and recognition serve to be the best education. On behalf of PG Department of English, Government Arts and Science College, Kovilpatti, I take this opportunity to propose a vote of thanks to those who have contributed to this webinar on Marxist theory and at the outset, I thank our resource person, Professor Martin, Assistant Professor in English, for sparing his valuable time with us. We are really enlightened with your knowledge and presence, sir. Thank you very much, sir. I wholeheartedly extend my gratitude to all the meticulous delegates who blessed us with your presence, and I express my gratitude to our principal, Dr. Ravichandran, sir, for his encouragement and moral support. As you all know, that no program can become a successful one with this eminent person. The webinar was made possible by his enormous contribution and structure made by our head of the department, Dr. Joseph Suresh, sir. We thank you for supporting and establishing the context and bringing in the participants, sir. Thank you very much, sir. At this juncture, I sincerely thank my colleague, Mr. Gunasekaran, sir, the guest faculty of English, and Mr. Vignesh, sir, our academic and well-wisher, for your tremendous and outstanding technical support and coordination. Thank you all for making this event successful with your contribution. I once again thank each and every participant of this great events 2020. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, madam. Thank you. We have a wonderful session. I thank all participants. I thank and especially the chief guest or the resource person of the day.